Hello everybody. I wish I could say happy Friday, but it isn't. We're dealing with a shooting in Connecticut, which is just the latest in a series of shootings that have taken place over the past few years. There's a part of me that wonders how much of this is just that, you know, we're online and we're more aware of these things as they occur, because at least for me, it didn't feel like the world was always like this. And I guess the thing that really gets to me is that each time something like this is announced, it's harder and harder to feel that kind of emotional outpouring, because each and every time something like this happens, you feel it less and less. I don't want to say you start to become accustomed to the tragedy, and that's a horrible thing to say. But I think with each passing tragedy, it just becomes more and more difficult to see this as something that stands out, something that's different from what you'd expect. And the cynical voice in my head is just sitting there and waiting for the next one to happen. I remember after the Aurora shootings, I had a few thoughts, and I have them again today. I was kind of wondering what it is about these shootings that make us so interested in learning as much as we can about, you know, the people involved, the victims, and the people who committed the acts. There's a part of it that's just natural human curiosity, and there's a part of it, though, that, at least from my perspective, I can be overcome with grief and empathy, but even more, I want to do something. I want to know why this happened, because I want to know what I can do to make sure that it doesn't happen again. It's not a problem to be sad or to be upset or to be completely distraught over this tragedy, but at the same time, I feel like the only way that I can bring meaning to it in my own life is by trying to do something as small as it may be to try and address whatever the issue is. Now, there are people who say this is a time for prayer and this is a time for being with your families and everything, and that's certainly, I think that's something that varies from person to person. You know, I texted my mom right away, but for me, there's a sort of extent to which I can't, you know, if I can't emotionally deal with it, I need to deal with it rationally. I need to figure out what exactly were the circumstances that led to this happening. And a lot of people have started posting things about gun control right away. And people land very far on this spectrum, and I think I think it's foolhardy to say that if you outlawed guns, that violence like this would go away entirely. I think it's equally foolish to say that if we had conceal and carry everywhere and everyone had a gun to defend themselves, that violence like this would go away. I think that trying to make this a single issue is problematic and short-sighted. But we have to do something. And if you try and the issue, no one wants to, I don't think anybody says that we should have the right to go out and murder school children. That's not a right that anyone wants to defend. And that's, moreover, that's a right that we want to do everything we can to prohibit. So what is it that we do? There are things that we all can do that can at least decrease the likelihood of things like this happening. Statistically, it doesn't mean that they won't happen. We have correlational information. We don't have causal information. If we invest in mental health, you look at the United States as being one of the most depressed nations, and you look at the people who commit these attacks as generally not being particularly mentally healthy. We can look at trying to improve the economy, to get people into a state where they can be emotionally fulfilled and not feel the need for not get to a place where they commit these sort of acts. There are things that we can all do, and it's so challenging because none of us know. We all want there to be one magic bullet that, oh, okay, this guy had a gun, and so if we just took away this guy's gun, everything would be fine. But that's not how it works. It would be so much easier to get over it intellectually if there was just some reason and there was some fix. And it's not, and I think a lot of people eventually sort of just have to rationalize that, you know, there are evil people in the world and we have to do what we can to protect ourselves against them. And I don't think I can go along with that. I think that's a cynical position. Because as much as I'm torn up by the actions of these individuals, I can't help but also feel sorrow and depression over whatever it is that brought them to that state. And this goes not just for mass shootings, the people that we vilify as just pure evil. You look at Hitler or Saddam Hussein or anybody, we may put them in that box because it makes it easy. I don't think that helps us avoid these problems in the future. I think ultimately what we have to do is do everything we can to treat everyone with compassion and to respect everyone as an individual, and to try and find out as much about these individuals that we typically put in that box, and do everything we can to make sure that those people have the help and support they need that doesn't bring them to that point. Because there's a big distinction between those evil actions. Genocide or murder or mass shootings, none of that is okay. But the people and the loss of their lives is equally sad. So I guess I just want to say, I hope that we take the opportunity not just to mourn, though that's certainly appropriate, but also to try and think about even the tiniest things that we can do to make the world a better and safer place for one another. Because even if it is just a marginal improvement that we can make, that's quality of life for some people, and it's actual lives for others. So thank you for listening. I'm going to go back to trying to be quirky and upbeat and funny on Monday, because ultimately that's what I think brings me joy, and hopefully brings you guys joy as well. And that enables me, and who knows, hopefully you guys, to help try and make the world just a little bit better. Thanks.